this is where we were. Any doubt or any question from previous session?
Uh, no, actually, I didn't go through it. Still, I didn't get the recorded session. I've asked Sumya, so after checking it, I'll let you know, Web.
Okay. See, recorded session is one thing. There are a couple of prerequisites that I asked you to go through, right? Because from today onwards, we will touch upon topics that require your database expertise, that require your object-oriented concept, which I told you about. So I need you to brush those concepts up so that you are able to relate to what I will say. Okay. So
Oh,
after today, I need you to go through all these things before our next class. Okay.
okay. Oh,
Okay, so now we will start talking about core concepts of enterprise content management and dive deep into it slowly, topic by topic. Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So we will talk about Documentum repository. It's an English word. Repository is an English word which means storehouse of something. Whatever you want to store, it will be called as a repository of clothes, repository of books, repository of content, repository of web contents, documents, whatever, right? So anything that you want to store in your Documentum setup, they get stored in the repository. Okay, there are two parts of repository. I have briefly told about that yesterday. That first part is called the database part, the RDBMS, where your actual metadata is getting stored. Correct.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
tables get is created, and each table will have different columns, and columns represent the attribute or property about the information that you are storing, right? And
Yeah.
then the actual storage, the file system, the SAN or the NAS, the mount points where the actual content is getting stored, right? Here you are
Yeah.
storing the metadata, and here you are storing the actual content. So both needs to be configured properly before you create and install the repository instance, which is running as a service on the server. So once we talk about the architecture section separately in detail, then I will show you how to install or create a repository service. But for now, let's just understand that repository is a storehouse of whatever you want to store in Documentum. It can be a content, it can be a user profile that you are creating, it can be your application deployments that you are doing. Everything gets stored in the repository, and they will have two components. One is the RDBMS part where you store the metadata about that information, and the other one is the actual content which gets stored. If it's a Word file, or if it's a PDF file, or if it's a JPG or PNG file, that content must be stored somewhere on the file storage, and that's what it does. Clear so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, all of these configuration can be done either on Windows machine or Unix or Linux or IBM AIX, iOS, Apple iOS, anywhere. Whatever operating system you choose, you need to download the respective installable from OpenText's website. Okay, so once you get OpenText access, you can go and log in there. Then you will see different executables that can be downloaded from the website, and those executables needed to be selected by you appropriately on the basis of which operating system you want to configure. Clear?
Yeah.
Now, as I told you, repository is a service that you need to create. Where do you need to create this service? You need to create this service after your content server is created and configured. Now, what is this? This is also a service. So you need to first install a content server on any server, on Unix or Windows or Solaris, Linux, whatever. First, you need to install content server executable based on the operating system you have. And then on top of that, you can install a repository. But before you install a repository service, you need to have your SAN or NAS or mount points or file storage ready. And you also need to have your database ready. This can be Oracle, MS SQL, SQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, whatever database you want. Correspondingly, you need to install and select the content server as well as repository, because in the internal architecture will be different for content server and repository if the database is different. Correct? Because Oracle stores tables in a different way. MS SQL stores tables in a different way. So obviously your content servers, the executables will also be different. So you need to select the right softwares on the basis of each component that you are selecting. Clear so far?
Yes.
And I briefly explained you yesterday a typical client server architecture, how a request or data flows whenever you hit a particular website, how the request flows from front end until the back end repository. Remember that?
Yes, yes, I remember.
The load balancer URL that you hit, behind the load balancer URL, you have uh,
Web
multiple
service.
web servers. Behind
Yeah.
web server, you have application servers, and then application server will have a configuration file which will tell you to which repository it wants to connect. And now, when you connect to a repository, the repository knows the file system and the database, and also the repository knows which content server to connect to. Correct? So this is a
Yeah.
typical client server architecture of a Documentum setup.
Mm.
And when you understand this flow, then whatever error message that you will come across, you will immediately come to know at what component you need to check the issue. Correct?
Yes.
So that's why I was telling you, you need to explore a bit on middleware part. For example, whenever you are hitting the application URL, right? Some URL is
Mm.
given to you, users are hitting that URL on their browser. And what is a class in Java or .NET also in object oriented concept?
Actually, it's been so many days, so
Okay, so
it
let me help
will.
you understand. Okay,
Okay.
because this Java concepts or Java or .NET, right? I'm talking about object-oriented programming concepts.
Mm.
Okay, so that
Okay.
concept is very, very important if you want to understand Documentum at all. If you don't understand those concepts, then you cannot understand Documentum. As simple as that.
Okay.
So I will briefly tell you pointers just to explain the Documentum concept, but you need to dive deep into the Java concepts, right?
Okay.
Like what is encapsulation, what is abstraction, right? So
Mm.
all the properties of a oops object oriented programming, that is something you need to study in detail.
Okay.
Now in a Documentum, every single thing that you will come across is stored in the repository as an object.
Okay.
Okay, now do you remember what was an object in Java or .NET? When you were creating a class, let's say you were creating a class of animal, right?
Okay.
Class animal, and inside the animal class you were defining some properties of animal. If these properties are met, it means you were calling that as a class of animal. Correct?
Yeah.
Let's say you define that of four legs, right?
Mm.
Let's say you define that two eyes, flat belly, something, whatever property you define.
Mm.
On the basis of those properties, you were able to classify that these creatures are animals. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
Similarly, in Documentum, everything is classified as an object of a particular class. Now, here we don't use the word class. Instead of
Mm.
class, we use the word object type to the application. Okay.
Mm.
So your
Okay.
user profile is stored in Documentum as an object.
Okay.
So your user profile is stored as an object, and you will have some property, right? What is your
Yes.
name, first name, what is
Yeah.
your last name, what is your user login name which you will be using to log in into the application, what is your email address, what is the domain on the server on which your user account is created, the LDAP domain. Correct? So
Yes.
all these details are nothing but attributes. They are called properties.
Okay.
So these are stored in the database. Now your user profile will not have a content associated with it. Why? Because content is optional. Content is
Okay.
associated only with documents, right? Only a
Yeah.
Word file, a PDF file, an HTML file, an XML file, a record file. These objects will have content also, and they will have property also. Property means database, metadata, RDBMS, and content means file storage part. So not all objects will have content. Like your user profile will not have a content. It will only have properties associated with it. Correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, after your user profile, my user account is also created to grant me some other level of access in the same application, right? You may have view access of the entire application. I may have delete access. I may go and delete what you are creating, right? So I may have some extended permission, right?
Yeah.
So my account is also created. So my account is also created as an individual, another user. Your profile
Yes.
is one user object, my profile is another object. So my object and your object will be different from each other in many aspects. It may have one or the other property values different, or it may have some other property same but other property different. So some or the other property must be different. Like my email ID will be different from you, correct? My user
Yeah.
login name will be different from you, correct? Maybe
Yeah.
I'm located in USA and you are located in Canada, some other Ontario state or something, or I am located in Maharashtra, India, something like that. So some or the
Yeah.
other property of each individual object must be different. That's why you created two individual objects. Otherwise, why will you create two objects? Correct? If every
Mhm.
property will have to be the same, then there is no need to create individual objects, right?
Yes.
Now, I am another one object, you are another object, and we are both user objects, right? Good. Now, how you can assign these properties, right? Properties are what? Metadata. Properties are what? Attributes. So in a database table, all the columns that you call, right? You call columns of a database table, correct? These
Yes.
columns are nothing but attributes, or these are nothing but properties in Documentum. So
Okay.
let's say you say what is the name of a document, who has created that document, what does it denote? It denotes the property of those documents, correct? So
Yes.
name, who is the owner of the document, when was it created, when was it last modified, they are all attributes in the table which you can run a query on to find. Let's say you say select owner underscore name from dm underscore document where name of the document is equal to something something. So what it
Mm.
will give you? It will give you who is the owner name of this particular document, correct?
Yes.
So similarly, in order to find any attribute and its related values, you need
Mm.
to know on which table you are running the query, and you also need to know all these attributes which are created at DM document level.
Okay.
Okay, so
Oh.
I will tell you how you can find all of that.
Okay.
Now, how you can assign a value to this property, right? Either you run a DQL query, you run an update query, and then you modify the values if something is already assigned. If not,
Mm.
then you can create a document, and at the time of creation of the document, using your client application, you can apply some values. Now, there are some properties which cannot be manually assigned by you. They are only assigned automatically by your repository or content server, as we call it.
Okay.
What are those values? Those values are these dates.
Okay.
When a document is getting created, when it was last modified, the date and time stamp, that is not something you can modify yourself, because if you are able to
Yes.
modify these things, it means it's an audit and compliance issue,
Okay.
correct?
Yes.
Why? Are you able to understand why it is so?
Yeah.
Because if you are able to change the date of the last modification time, let's say Ramesh updated a document yesterday and he went
Mm.
into the system and he deleted something, and he also added someone else's name and date and time stamp of some other day,
Yes. Yes. I
then you will
understand.
never be able to go back and check who was updating that document yesterday, who changed the content of the document, right? And when it was changed, it will
Yeah.
kill the entire essence of audit issues,
Yes.
right? So that's
Yeah.
why there are some of the attributes which are automatically assigned by content server whenever you create that or whenever you
Yeah.
modify that. Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Manually you can assign some property to to a document, right? So you can right click on a property on a document or any object or user object, view properties. If you have the permission, you can again modify it from the application also, from your customization also, or manually also using your query also, update query or another API commands also, you can modify it. So
No.
these are all the ways in which you can assign a value to any of these attributes.
Okay.
Okay, so there will be this metadata, and behind this metadata you will have a content file, and that content file is stored on the file storage, which is your SAN, NAS, mount points, or any
Mm.
other storage that you may have configured for your application. And these attributes help you for faster searches of these documents. If you remember anything about any of these objects and you have search component integrated and configured properly, then you can search on the basis of these keywords. You know what these keywords are? These keywords are nothing but hashtags that you are creating. Let's say you
Okay.
created this document and you against keywords you can add multiple values just for the sake of identifying that this document belongs to manufacturing department, their tooling section, and from the assembly line, something like that. So as
Okay.
many keywords as you provide here, it further helps you classify the document easier, and then it makes the document searchable in a faster and easier way.
Okay.
Okay, clear?
Yeah.
Now these are all the types of document that you can store. It's a very limited list. It doesn't mean that these are the only document that you can store. You can store a normal document like Word file or PDF file, right? Or image file you can store. Web page you can store like HTML file, JSP file, all these things you can store. XML documents you can store. Reports you can store. Executable file you can store, but usually it is prohibited. Prohibited, it means organizations usually have this compliance that you cannot upload executable file into Documentum. Otherwise, if you have an internet enabled application and you upload something from your office, you can bring it to your local machine on your home base, right? So
Mm.
usually that's why these executables are restricted. These restrictions are a part of customization. It's not like Documentum doesn't support it.
Oh.
Engineering drawing documents, so in manufacturing company or in a supply chain company, whatever engineering drawing CAD CAM documents that we discussed about yesterday, you can upload
Mm.
all of that and manage it. Scanning solution images, right? We discussed about it yesterday. Audio video files,
Yeah.
JPEG files, high quality videos that publishing house, media companies, or entertainment industry creates, right? They all can be stored and managed properly if you have the right product license. Okay, some of these products can be used out of the box, but for
Mm.
others you need to have a separate license for different products that OpenText have.
Okay.
Like for this you will need digital asset media services. For this you will need Brava, we talked about yesterday, right? Brava. For this you will need Captiva, or Kofax is another third party vendor which provides scanning solution which can be integrated with Documentum using web services or RESTful API. Okay, whenever you come across any third party integration, just blindly think that there must be a RESTful or web services in between. Otherwise there is no way to integrate your Documentum landscape related things to a third party which is outside the scope of OpenText suite of products. If something is outside OpenText suite of products, it means Documentum must have some sort of web services or RESTful API which it is using to expose its services and consume their services.
Okay.
Whether it is integration with SharePoint, which is a Microsoft product. So Microsoft is not OpenText, that's why you need web services. If you want to integrate your Documentum with Siebel, for example, which is an outside product, so you need web services. If you are integrating your Documentum with SAP, either SAP
Mm.
Crystal Reports or SAP ERP tool, which is an enterprise resource planning in your organization, right? So in that case also you will need a web services based integration to be done. Some of
Okay.
these plugins are readily available with OpenText, so you just download it, plug and play. And in other cases, if it is not provided by OpenText, then your developer must write some web services on their own. They need to write the getters and setters and consume the services from third party. So they basically they need to write the development. They need to do the development for web services to be consumed and exposed.
Oh.
Clear?
Yes.
So all these documents that you saw here, right? They can
Mm.
be, each of these documents will have different formats. So document,
Mm.
normal document can be .doc, .docx, .pdf, .png, .jpg, .gif, .tiff. Web page, it can be .html, .jsp, right? .xml file. A report can be many formats. So if you are using Tableau, then it can be some other format. If you are using Power BI, then it will be creating a report of some other format. If you are using Crystal reports, then it will be creating some other format. using the Documentum reporting services. If you have executable, then you also have executables of different formats, right? .exe can be there, .dll libraries can be there, engineering drawing documents .dwg will be there, .cat, .cam will be there, scanned images will be of different formats, right? So you can have any format and everything is supported in Documentum, as simple as that.
Oh,
And in order to open files of each of these format, you need to obviously have a relevant software installed on your client application. So if you are trying to access an application from your laptop and you want to open a file which is created using some software of Crystal reports, then you must have the respective client application to open it, right? Or you must have, let's say, if Adobe Reader is not installed on your machine, can you open a PDF file? You cannot,
no.
right? Similarly, if
Yes.
you don't have MS Office installed, then you cannot open a Word file. So similarly,
Yeah.
so for all these formats, for all these executables, for all these formats, for all these types of documents, you need to have the respective software installed on your client application, client machine from which you are accessing the application. Clear?
Yes.
Great. Now this is another important concept, version control.
Yeah.
So you know what version is, correct?
Yeah.
So you have an original document. Yesterday we were talking about the life cycle of a document, correct?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So let's say you received a draft document and you call it 1.0 version.
Mm.
Now you want to make some changes to this document. So
Mm.
you get two options. We will see all those screens. Once you receive this document in Documentum and you are
Mm.
editing this document, at the time of saving this document, you will get two options. Either you save it with the same version or you save it with the next version.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. Now there are two next versions. One is next minor version and one is next major version. Now do you know the difference between minor version and major version?
Any simple changes in.
So conceptually that is fine, but in terms of these digitals that you see here, right? So you received an original document 1.0. You call it a draft version. Now, when you make
No.
some changes to this draft document and you want to save the changes, content-wise you made the changes, but at the
Yes.
time of saving, system will ask you whether you want to save it with the same version. Same version means 1.0, or you want
Okay.
to save it with the next minor.
Mm. You're not audible, Vaibhav.
Sorry,
Hello?
yeah,
Yeah, you were not audible before. Now it's good.
am I audible now?
Yes, yes. You're audible now.
Okay. So minor versions are the documents in which
Mm.
the changes are still being made and some other people are still supposed to make some changes before it is finally published for wider audience to have a look at it. Just
Okay.
an example, you are working on a contract, right?
Okay.
You received some contract from your vendor and you are, let's say, junior most person in the team. You reviewed the
Mm.
document, you suggested some changes here and there, you referred it back to the person who sent it to you, and that person
Mm.
again made the changes and then he shared that again with you with the changes that you suggested, right?
Mm.
So you made some changes, you referred it back as 1.1 to that person, then again that person made the changes, they again made the changes and saved it with 1.2 version, and they shared it with you. You again
Mm.
reviewed it, you found that okay, everything is fine. Now I will forward it to my manager. Now your manager
Mm.
will again review it, he will also suggest some changes to you, it will again come back to you, you will make the changes, you will make it as 1.3 for example,
Okay.
and then you will push it back for your manager's review and he will finally approve it, publish it, so that everyone in your organization knows that there is a contract signed between your organization and that vendor.
Mm.
So when your manager finally approves it, he will not create 1.4, he will create 2.0.
Okay.
Understand?
Final
And
version.
so
Yes, yes.
final version against that particular contract, when no further changes are required at that point in time, and this document is to be referred by everyone else for the
Mm.
contractual legal contractual binding with that particular vendor, then that is called major version.
Okay.
And whenever you change something from minor version to major version,
Mm.
the number before dot has to change. You see this dot in between, right?
Yes.
So when it is main minor change, it means something after dot has to change. 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, whatever. And the moment it has to become a major version for that change, point 0.4 will become 0 and 1 will become 2.
Okay.
Understand? Now
Yes,
next
yes.
minor version from 2.0 will be 2.1, 2.2,
Mm.
2.3, 2.4, and the next major version from that list will be
3
3.0.
points.
Now you understand, correct? So this
Yes.
is called versioning. Now important thing to understand, this is linear branching. This is a
Okay.
linear versioning.
Okay.
You are only moving in one direction.
Mm.
1.0, 1.1, from 1.1 you created to 1.2, 1.3, and then you created 2.0. This is linear. Now what
Okay.
if you no longer need to make changes to 2.0? You need to make changes
We
to
can submit.
one of the previous versions.
Sorry, sorry, I didn't get you.
So I'm saying this you see
Mm.
is in a single line, correct? That's why it
Yeah.
is called linear versioning. Now,
Mm.
what happens if there is a situation when this
Mm.
2.0 is, for example, corrupted, or you no longer want to refer back to this document, you want to
Mm.
make changes to one of the older documents, which is minor version of this particular branch.
Okay.
So how will it look? Any idea?
Versions will get messed up. No.
No, no, it is not. It's a concept that is called branch versioning.
Okay.
That is called branch
Okay.
versioning. We will talk
Okay.
about that.
In the middle of the versions, again, we can create the version.
Correct. So from
Okay.
1.1, we had gone to 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and then
Mm.
2.0, right? That is linear branch. Now from
Mm.
2.0, we don't want to go to 2.1. From
Mm.
1.1, we want to proceed further in a branch way, like this. So there is a branch that will create from here. So from
Mm.
1.1, the next branch version that will be created, the next minor version.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. Now we discussed about versions, linear version and branch version. Similarly, we talked about renditions yesterday, correct? That there may be a requirement that one particular format of a document needs to be changed to another format,
Mm.
correct? For
Yes.
example, you have MS Office document that you received from your contractor,
Mm.
from your vendor. Once
Mm.
everything is published, then you can keep it either in a Word format, which will mostly be editable, or you
Mm.
convert it into a non-editable PDF format, correct?
Mm.
When you finally publish it for everyone else to have a look at it, correct?
Yes.
Or let's say your colleagues are sitting in Europe, somewhere in Spain, or some Spanish, French region of Canada, or they are in China,
Mm.
right? So if you create a Word document and you send it to your manager who is sitting in China for review, they will not expect you to send a English document. They will expect you to send it in a Mandarin language, which is of Chinese official language, right?
Yeah.
Or when you send a document, when you are working with a Japanese client, for example, or your manager is Japanese, they will not expect you to send a English. They are very, they're not like us, right? We know our mother language also, which is from our native
Mm.
states, or some people have Hindi, and we also work in English language, but they don't want to work on English language unless it is strictly necessary. So they will expect
Okay.
you to share the document in their language. So how do you do that? Let's say you have received an English document, you need to convert it into their respective countries' foreign translation. So that
Mm.
translation is also a rendition. Rendition is an English word, you know, right? There are many renditions of songs that are created, right? Like Muhammad
Yeah.
Rafi, you know the name of Muhammad Rafi, singer,
Yeah.
right? So Muhammad Rafi was a singer, and Sonu Nigam also sang that. So many singers also sang the same song in their own way. So they are called renditions of Sonu Nigam for the original song.
Okay.
Similarly, Ramayana and Mahabharata, the epic books, right, of Indian history,
Mm-hmm.
different people have written it in their own way. So the different
Yes.
books are called renditions of the original one, which was written by Valmiki.
Mm.
Similarly, here there will be an original document which will come in its format. So first document that you received is considered as a native document, which is native
Mm.
format. Now, whatever format it is, if you change the format of the document, the content remains the same, right? Even if someone is reading it in Japanese, they are actually eventually reading the same content. Whatever it is written in English, it is just written in Japanese language. The content is the same, the language is different. The content is
Yeah.
the same, the format is different. It is document, it is
Mm.
PDF, it is HTML. So if that is the case, against a native document, you associate multiple different formats or
Mm.
translations associated, then each of these individual documents will be considered as individual renditions of this document.
Okay.
So these are different content files associated with the original document. So you remember I told you that there is a content file associated with each document, and the
Yes.
reference of that content file is there in the DM document level.
Mm.
So you will have three different content file which will denote that these are different renditions associated with the document.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes, clear.
Now just go back to this particular screen and
Okay.
merge these two concepts together, this rendition concept and this version concept. How?
Mm.
You received an original document into Word file
Okay.
and you called it 1.0. You
Yeah, okay.
reviewed it, you made the changes in the English language document, and you
Mm.
need to share it with your manager sitting in Japan to review it. What will you do? You will first read the original document, make the
Mm.
changes to the actual content, and create a native document 1.1 which is still in English language. But
Okay.
this document needs to have a Japanese language translation rendition associated with it. So with
Mm.
this particular document, you will create a Japanese rendition translation. Your manager will review this document, and then he will, if he needs to make some changes, then he will also make the changes. And let's say he needs to make the changes and refer it back to his manager who is again sitting back in India. What he will do?
Mm.
He will again convert that Japanese rendition into English translation,
Mm. Okay.
right? So that people sitting in India can review. So you see that
Yes.
with each version there may be a requirement of different renditions, different languages, different translations, different format associated with it. So for
Mm.
each version of a document there can be different number of renditions required as and when there is a business case.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes.
Now you cannot edit this rendition, very important concept.
Okay.
You cannot directly edit this rendition. Why? Can you try to answer this? Why you
If
cannot
we
edit the rendition?
the original document will be will already be there. So first we have to make changes there. After then, uh,
Correct. Perfect. Great. Good, good, good. So first, if you make the changes to this document, then this document
mm,
becomes different from this document. And the moment
yes.
this becomes different from this document, they are no longer renditions, right? So it
Mm, yes.
violates the concept of rendition. So what you
Yeah.
need to do, you first need to update the original document and then again associate rendition with the updated document,
Uh,
right? So you first need to make the changes at this version level. Then
mm,
this is now an updated document for you. Now you create, associate different renditions with that, whatever
mm,
translation, whatever Word to PDF, PDF to Word, whatever play you want to do, you then
mm,
need to associate that. So only
mm,
original document needs to be updated, and then the rendition needs to be created for the updated document with a new version.
yeah, yeah.
Every time you must create a new version, because if you
Mm,
don't create a new version, you save it with the same version, you eventually override it, which was the challenge with the file system way of storing things you discussed yesterday, correct?
yes.
So whenever you are storing some document with the same name on your file system, it was overwriting it,
Yeah.
right? That's the
Yes.
reason we created this concept of content management, right? So you use that concept and always create new versions so that you can always refer it back, what was the
Mm,
previous version's content.
okay.
Clear?
Yes, clear.
Now, this is a security concept. We will have a separate session on all these concepts like renditions, on
Mm,
versions, but we are
Mm.
just touching upon this very briefly just to help you,
Okay.
warm up.
Okay.
Okay. Now there are many layers of security in Documentum. Okay, we will not dive into it now because it is a 2-3 session topic. But this
Okay.
is just a basic concept which is called object level permission, and this is
Mm.
called basic permission. So there are two types of permission in Documentum. One is basic permission and applications, off the shelf application that open text provides. You can customize all these applications based on your business requirement. You can use it off the shelf. You can just deploy it as a war. These are all war files, okay? By the way, war or EAR files, and you can deploy it with your application, and then you can access the browser and then do the manipulation, create document, whatever.
Mm.
Webtop is there, Documentum administration is there, as administrator is there, D2 client is there, so many. D2 Life Sciences is there, so many other products are there in the market, which OpenText provides off the shelf. Now there is something called integration that you can do with SAP, with SharePoint, with Siebel. So they all require web services, but they all use the Documentum repository or Documentum content server. Now, these are all client. I told you that Documentum is a client server architecture, correct? So these are
Yeah.
all client applications on the right hand side, and this is the server in the backend. Now,
Mm.
these client applications are of two types. Do you know what is the difference between a thin client and a thick client?
No.
No, thin client is a website based client, and thick client is something that you install on your machine. So MS Word, MS Office, or Adobe Reader that you install on your machine, what are they? They are thick client,
Thick.
thick. Yeah,
Thick.
and
Okay.
something that you access from the browser, they are called thin client. So this webtop is a thin client, so it's a war file that you deploy on your application server. Your
Mm.
application server's detail will be with web server, your web server's detail is with load balancer, and you hit the load balancer URL in your browser to access the resources here.
Mm. Mm.
That's why it
Okay.
is a thin client. Similarly, these are all integrations. MS Office integration, it is a thick client,
Mm.
and
Okay.
this is a web services based integration, so you cannot call it any thick or thick here.
Okay.
Okay, so you can have thin client, you can have thick client, but eventually you access the content at the repository level, manipulate it, manage it, whatever you want to do, you can do it with any of these applications. Or if you
Okay.
don't want to use these applications provided by Documentum, then you can write your own Java code. You can write your own Java application which will utilize these resources, but the effort of development will increase here because you need to define the layout of the application, you need to customize it properly so that the end users are able to access. Or you can customize the existing application which is given to you, you just deploy it, customize it based on your requirement, and use the resources at server level. Clear?
Yes.
Now this is the most common screen that you will
Okay.
see when you log in into the application. You see this?
Yeah.
You see this screen? So this is a web top screen. Similar to this, there will be a Documentum administrator screen. So if you will work
Okay.
now, there are different segment of this particular page which we need to understand. Do you want me to continue today, or you want me to continue in the next session after you have gone through all the points which I have told you? It's up to you. You tell me.
Can we complete it in 10 to 15 minutes or will it take long time?
It will take long time because I need to dive more into so many things here.
Okay, then we can continue tomorrow.
Tomorrow's also you want to have a session?
Yeah,
At what time?
I'll let you know, Vaibhav.
No,
Tomorrow I
but
have.
Pravalika, we need to fix one time, please, on a daily basis.
Uh,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
Any one
Uh,
time we need to
your
fix.
office timings, sir?
Sorry.
Your office timings.
Currently, I'm on paternity leave. So for the next 10 days, I am a little more flexible. But after that, my flexibility will come down. So I work in EMEA hours. So I
Mm.
work from 11:30 to 9.
Okay. Then
Yeah.
I'll fix one time and let you know, Vaibhav. Is it fine?
Uh, Sorry, come again?
I'll fix the time and I'll let you know.
Okay,
Daily.
okay. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
let me know accordingly.
Okay.
Before we close the call, right? So this is how the screen will look. This is the
Okay.
browser I was talking to you about, right? So
Okay.
this is the URL where you hit the application, and after the port, This is the host name, this is the port on which the server is deployed, this is the context.xml files detail, web.ear or da.ear or war file, and then the other section of the DRLs. You know DRLs, dynamic resource look, www.something.com, it redirects to a URL to find the resource for you,
Yeah.
right? When you double click on this folder,
Mm.
this will change, correct? So that will
Yes.
become the DRL for this particular path of the folder.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
this is the cabinet folder I was talking to you about. That the first thing that you need to create is your cabinets, and inside the
Okay.
cabinets you will have different folders, and then folders will have many folders layers, and then documents.
Okay.
Okay, now the
Okay.
first section that you see here is the name of the repository. You see
Mm.
this?
Okay.
You so
Yes.
once you have many times view at this, you will identify these icons also. For
Mm.
example, this is the icon of a folder, but you can change it, you can customize it if you want to. This is nothing but a .gif file at the application web top layer, and then you can go and change that gif file for the folder and then refresh it, so this icon will change.
Okay.
This is cabinet icon. Inside that,
Mm.
this is folder icon. This is the name of the repository, and this is the name of the user who has logged in into the repository. You see this, student A.
Yes.
This is the search bar. I told you to search the name of the document on you which you have read permission, right? So from here
Yes.
you can search it. So this is a simple search, and
Okay.
here you can only provide the keyword you want to search, and then there is
Mm.
something called advanced search. So we will talk all about this in detail in the search functionality.
Okay.
Simple search can only search on the basis of a couple of attributes associated with the documents, but
Mm.
advanced search allows you to search the documents against any attribute, not
Okay.
not one or two attribute, against
Mm.
any attribute. So from the drop down values you can select all those things, you can customize this functionality, you can
Mm.
customize what happens when you click on go button. So for now there is a predefined way that when you click on go button after typing the keyword, it will search against a couple of keywords and then give you the output. But if you want to change that functionality, you can change at the click of a go button.
Okay.
And in Java, you must know that everything in Documentum is an object, and everything that you see in the website here is a component. So each component will have different files that you need to find, and once you are able to find those individual files for those components, you can customize it. So let's say it is a search component. So this search component will have its JSP page, which will tell you the layout of this particular component. And then you will
Mm.
have some XML files, which are the deployment descriptors in Java. And then you will have some properties files, some dependent libraries, which helps you to execute this functionality. And then the class files, which will tell you what functionality you have changed here. On the click of a go button, what needs to
Okay.
be done, that will be given in your class file, .class file in Java. So if you are able to find these four files, which four files? JSP, which is your layout, XML, which is your deployment descriptor, property files, which is your property about the configurations, your
Mm.
dependent libraries and jar files, and the class files, which defines the behavior. If you are able to find these five files for each component, you can customize it.
Okay.
For example, if you see behind search, you see this blue icon, correct? This is nothing
Yes.
but a GIF file. You can change this logo. You can change this branding. You can mention, okay, if you are working for HSBC or HDFC customer, you can put the HDFC logo here.
Okay.
So this is a search component. This is the menu component, file, edit, view, tools. When you click on tools, some menus will come. You can hide
Okay.
those menus. You can create your own custom menus inside that. You can add more menu here also, and you can add some sub menus inside these menus also.
Okay.
You can customize this. This is called browser tree.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, in the left hand panel, all these options that you see, this is called browser tree. So for
Okay.
browser tree component also, you will have same JSP, HTML files, property file, jars and libraries, custom class files that you write. You can go and customize it.
Okay.
This is logout component. This is preference component, and this is the section where you see the content.
Okay.
Yeah, when you double click on this, you will see the list of documents inside this folder and then everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the
Mm.
basic page of any client application, off the shelf client application, that you will receive from OpenText.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a thin client which you see here, which is a browser based, and this is a thick client which you
Mm.
see is on your local machine.
Okay.
So this is again a browser tree. This is again an address bar. Instead of browser bar, this is an address bar. And this is the way your folder hierarchy will look here, similar
Okay.
to how it looks on your file. So this thick client is nothing but this is how some customers are more comfortable with the way they work on their local laptops. So that's why
No.
they want this integration to be done in such a way that they feel more comfortable with this way of look and feel. Otherwise, behind the scene, there is a repository which is associated with this.
Okay.
And I was telling to you about this virtual documents, correct?
Yeah.
So this is a normal Word document. You see this icon,
Yes.
normal Word document, and this is a virtual document. Dot 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 dot. So this is the name of the book, for example. Let's say the name of the book is chemistry, and inside that you will have three chapters: organic chemistry, physical chemistry, inorganic chemistry, which will be separately checked out by three different people
Mm.
parallelly working on them, and they will parallelly check it in back so that there is a reduced response time of completing the book writing. So primarily it
No.
is done in publishing industry. You can convert a normal document into a virtual document. Just right click, convert, and then into virtual document it can be converted.
Okay.
Okay. And the
Okay.
object type of virtual document is different. Each
Okay.
of these normal documents are stored as dm underscore document, remember, but a virtual document will be who has worked on which particular children document inside that, which is called component. So each children document inside this virtual document is called component of that virtual document. And
Mm.
whenever someone is making some changes to individual components inside this virtual document, and then they are saving and making the changes and saving, checking it and whatnot.
No.
So each individual children document can be checked out by multiple people.
Okay.
That's why it is a deviation from normal
Mm.
document.
Okay.
Now there are two types of views. One of this is a streamlined view. You see this above, which is more user friendly. Not, they are more lighter on the execution point of view because their HTMLs are very eased out here. But here, if you
Mm.
see, it is more CSS5 and HTML heavy, so it will take time to load here. But this is something which you people prefer because it is more user friendly, the classic view.
Okay.
Yeah. And let's talk about this next session. Otherwise, you will get confused.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So read, study the points which I have told you, because slowly
Okay.
again you can already notice like how much we are diving into the components of Java and database. And
Mm.
once we start picking up other topics, there will be some queries that I will be helping you to build for you to understand it. And if you don't understand the database concept, if you don't understand inner join and outer join, normalization of tables in database, then it will be difficult for you to pick further from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
So read it.
Mm. Okay.